Continuing our journey over the former London, Tilbury and Southend Railway, we will now retrace our steps back to Upminster and get a driver's eye view of the 6-mile single-line branch to Grays. We join another Class 357 EMU on a service from London Fenchurch Street to Southend Central. Departing Upminster, we can see platform 1A to our right, which is not regularly used these days. Just beyond, we can see the Upminster IECC, the Integrated Electronic Control Centre responsible for the signalling of the entire C2C network. The driver in command slows the train down to 15 miles an hour as we leave the Barking to Pitsea direct line, originally built by the LTSR between 1885 and 1888. We are now on the single line proper, which you may recall was built by the LTSR in 1892 as part of its route from Grays to Romford. The Romford section via Emerson Park was opened the following year. Although only a single line today, this has always been the case, but you will notice from time to time that many of the overbridges were constructed with doubling in mind. Here the line passes under the M25.
VWS cancellation for a double yellow and then signal single yellow. In and onto a red.
Next station stop.
The over-exuberant alarm followed by the audio announcement is the Timetable Advisory System, or TAS. Operating off an Apple iPad, the system provides train drivers with information on how the train they are driving is progressing relative to timetable. The alarm goes off when approaching a station and goes off for a second time when in or just outside the station platforms, the audio announcements reminding drivers of the train's length. Similar to a driver advisory system seen on many modern rolling stock today, TAS has less complexities about it and more emphasis placed on the expertise and knowledge of the train driver.
Approaching next station stop. Train length 8.
Signal's cleared.
Both lines are bi-directional, and we naturally arrive on the down line. However, out of peak times, many up trains call at this platform due to the fact it's closer to the station exit.
They can't.
Ockendon is the only original station to open on the route to Grays back on the 1st of July 1892. Actually, the station serves the town and Church of England parish of South Ockendon and has an estimated population of 22,000 since 2019. This viaduct takes us over the Dyke. For the umpteenth time, our train crosses the A13.
Approaching next station stop.
Out of sight to our right, the line is shadowing the A126 dual carriageway.
Big car, left hand side release.
Approaching next station stop. Train length 8.
We are now approaching Chafford Hundred Lakeside. The lakeside suffix was added here in 2013, not only to reflect its location in the town, but also its close proximity to the shopping centre of the same name. The Lakeside Shopping Centre was opened here in 1990, and 5 years later the station opened, with a bus service shuttling to and from the station, but has since been replaced by a pedestrianised footbridge at the turn of the millennium.
Limehouse cancellation, full dropping speed to 14. Braking, full dropping speed to 14.
We slow right down to 40 miles an hour as we prepare to join the original London, Tilbury and Southend Railway route at West Thurrock Junction.
Approaching TPWS hotspot.
Approaching next station stop. Approaching next station stop. Train length 8.
Arriving at Grays for the first time today, we can see Bay Platform 3, which is used often for the half-hourly services from Fenchurch Street over the original route, and was extended in 2008 to accommodate 8-car trains. Notice beyond the down platform we can see the level crossing and the footbridge, which is unusual as it's not connected to the station platforms. A subway does the job instead. The train will now continue onwards to call at all stations to Southend Central. We shall now see the route from Pitsea back to Fenchurch Street over the original line. The journey is only 55 minutes in total. Our 8-car Class 357 Electrostar sits in Platform 3, ready to depart. Standing in the V of the two lines is the former signal box. The station had in fact been called Pitsea Junction with the arrival of the direct line from Barking in 1888, changing to Pitsea for VANDAII in 1932 before becoming plain old Pitsea in 1953. We take the crossover onto the up line at 25 miles an hour before we cross over Pitsea Hall Lane level crossing, a full barrier level crossing fitted with CCTV monitors supervised by the Upminster IECC. The road leads to the Wat Tyler Country Park within the South Essex marshes. We are now travelling over the original London, Tilbury and Southend Railway route, superseded by the direct line 31 years later. This section from Stanford-le-Hope to Leigh-on-Sea opened in 1855. trees on our right is the A13 dual carriageway, the main road connecting East London with Essex, and is the railway's main competition. Here we pass a dual speed sign, 35 miles an hour for local haul trains, while the 60 for EMUs. Stanford-le-Hope. Often known locally as Stanford, the station was the terminus of the LTSR in August 1854 from Low Street. The town has grown in size and has started to incorporate neighbouring settlements such as Corringham, Mucking and Fobbing. The latter was the scene of one of the uprisings which led to the Peasants' Revolt in 1381. Joining on the left at Thames Haven Junction is the double-track connection from the oil refinery, owned by the DP World London Gateway. The rail terminal is one of the longest in the UK, with 16 miles of double-track access accommodating trains up to 35 wagons. At the end of the line was where the Corringham Light Railway lived and breathed between 1901 and 1971, however passenger services ended in 1952. For much of its life the railway was owned by the Mobile Oil Company, connecting with the oil refinery as well as providing a passenger service to Corringham via Kinnock Town, later Corriton. An interesting fact is that on the 10th of April 2017, the first ever freight train ran from the DP terminal to China, the journey taking 3 weeks exactly. The train and cargo went through France, Belgium, Germany, Poland, Belarus, Russia and Kazakhstan, before ending in China's eastern province at Zhejiang. We arrive at East Tilbury, opened as a halt in 1936, intending to be used by workers at the nearby Barter Shoe Company. By 1949, the small halt was upgraded to station status. This was where Low Street Station once stood. It was the temporary terminus of the LTSR for 4 months in April 1854, when the railway arrived here from Forest Gate. After the extension took place to Stanford-le-Hope, the halt closed and remained this way until 1861, when it reopened as a station. It closed in 1967. The former station once had sidings associated with a gravel works. One cannot miss the large substation standing on the banks of the River Thames at Tilbury. The power station is operated by co-firing and biomass, supplying electricity to most of the county of Essex. The station has its own dedicated jetties on the Thames, which allows the ships to deliver the fuel. driver in command slows our train right down to 20 miles an hour on the approach to a tight curve, the legacy of which used to form a triangle with Tilbury Riverside Station. The station was one of the original terminuses of the London, Tilbury and Southend, opening on the 13th of April 1854, providing an interchange with the port of Tilbury, taking advantage of the increasing steamboat traffic in this area of the Thames. One part of the triangle diverged to our left here. The port of Tilbury was the entry for many immigrants, among them being a group from the West Indies, and by the 1960s, some passengers arrived here on boats from as far as Australia. What was the third side of the triangle is now the line that leads to a Rail Freight International depot. With the increase of car ownership, the passenger number levels decreased to the very point that Riverside Station became virtually abandoned. The final nail in the coffin was the opening of the Dartford crossing. Local passenger trains did continue to stop and reverse at Tilbury Riverside until the station closed for good on the 30th of November 1992. Since closure, the area has been redeveloped by the already mentioned freight depot, and the old station building became an indoor car park. A bus shuttle runs from Tilbury Town Station to Tilbury Riverside to connect with ferries that still operate from here to Gravesend in Kent every 30 minutes. The current service is subsidised by both the Thurrock and Kent County Councils. Tilbury Town Station opened in 1886. First called Tilbury Docks, the suffix was changed in 1932 to how it is now. This is St Andrew's Road, the A1089. Appearing on our left come from a number of sidings associated with a Freightliner depot at Tilbury Docks. The freight line merges into one shortly before connecting with us on the approach to Grays. Cross over the High Street level crossing and arrive at Grays Station. This station was known on day one as Gray's Thurrock, but that suffix disappeared in the 1900 era. West Thurrock Junction seen in the other direction. Just beyond, look out for a very lucky fox. Rails that appear from the bushes used to serve the Lafarge and Thames Maytax works. Concrete road bridge we can see in front of us carries the A282, part of the M25, taking the dual carriageway towards the Dartford crossing. The following bridge carries the tracks of High Speed 1 shortly after it has emerged from the Thames tunnels. Incidentally, the Dartford crossing is unusual, as southbound traffic cross the Thames by means of a bridge, the northbound is by two tunnels. The line comes from the Purfleet Thames Terminal Deepwater Wharf. It makes a junction with the main line at Purfleet Station. Here the river is its closest to the line. Purfleet Station has been here since day one. The town is the terminus of the London Loop Long Distance Trail. The 150-mile-long public footpath passes through parks, woods and fields around the edge of London, described as the M25 for walkers. The start of the path is directly on the other side of the Thames at Erith, and goes via Crayford, Banstead, Uxbridge, Cockfosters and Chigwell. After crossing the Mar Dyke, our train comes alongside the tracks of High Speed 1. The high wall acts as a sound barrier to cut down the overall noise of Eurostar and Southeastern high-speed trains travelling through this area at 142 miles an hour. At this level crossing over Tank Hill Road, records show that there was a small halt opened here, called Purfleet Rifle Range Halt. It had a lifespan of 27 years from 1921 to 1948. HS1 now rises up on Aveley Viaduct to cross over us. A13 crosses overhead once more. The line is now on a dead straight course for the next 3 miles over Wellington Marsh. The Class 357s were built in 2 batches between 1999 and 2002 at their works at Litchurch Lane in Derby. Having costed £292 million, these were the first trains to be built as part of the Electrostar family, designed with the same body shell and core structure as the Turbostar DMUs. The trains replaced the 8 Class 310 and 312 slam door sets and have a maximum train speed of 100 miles an hour. However, the maximum today is 75 miles an hour, despite the fact the line is signalled for 100 mile an hour running. We are now exactly 12 miles from London Fenchurch Street, and we arrive at Rainham, the station situated to the southwest of the town centre. Access to the Rainham marshes is via a footbridge immediately south of the station. HS1 was completed in November 2007, diverting the original Eurostar trains from the former international terminus at Waterloo into St Pancras. Many of the level crossings on this side of the line were curtailed to road traffic, but retained by pedestrians wishing to cross the footbridges over HS1. However, this footpath crossing has been closed permanently. Ford factory at Dagenham is just to the south of here, having opened in 1931 from the owner's former site at Trafford Park in Manchester. Today the area covers 475 acres and has received over £800 million of capital investment since 2000. Since opening here in 1931, the factory has produced 10,980,000 cars and more than 39 million engines, and at its peak in 1953 hired over 53,000 employees. Vehicle assembly ceased in 2002. To our right is the Hope cement terminal. This is Dagenham Dock. The current station replaced an earlier station on the other side of the Ripple Lane Freight Terminal complex in 1908. The station is shadowed by the dual carriageway carrying the A13. Dagenham Dock is by far the least busy on the entire route, as it's located within an industrial area. HS1 now descends into tunnel for the remainder of its 7 miles to London St Pancras International. The two lines separate to go around the Ripple Lane Freight Depot. The Ripple Lane Marshalling Yard was part of BR's 1955 modernisation programme, and for the first time situated in between two running lines. Its main objective was to serve the docks and other marshalling yards in the area. Notice the brand new viaduct up ahead, which is under construction as part of the Gospel to Barking line extension to Barking Riverside. The route will cross our line by means of this concrete viaduct, before swinging towards the south and terminating at a brand new elevated station. Barking Riverside will hopefully regenerate the area and will include the building of new houses as well as adding leisure and shopping facilities. As part of the extension, another station at Renwick Road has been safeguarded for the future. 13 passes overhead for the last time. At the same time, the up and down main lines rejoin after their separate deviations around the Ripple Lane complex. The unelectrified track in the middle of the formation is the down goods line from Ripple Lane. The bridge carries Ripple Road. Approaching Barking, we rejoin the direct line from Upminster. We now get to see the route into Fenchurch Street in the opposite direction. When the Gospel-Oak to Barking line extension is complete, overground trains will be rerouted into platforms 7 and 8 from the Bay Platform 1. While Barking is still a major interchange with rail services, the station has a number of local bus routes that stop right outside the main station entrance, serving all parts of East London. Line recrosses the C2C lines. Another flyover takes a double-track electrified line to connect with the Gospel-Oak line, also the original course of the LTSR to Forest Gate on the Great Eastern Main Line dating from 1854. While it's not used often nowadays, C2C trains use this route into Liverpool Street via Stratford when Fenchurch Street is closed. Cross the River Roding and pass under the North Circular Road, the A406. Once again, the two tracks separate and pass around the back of the C2C depot at East Ham, responsible for maintaining the 74 Class 357s and 6 Class 387s. In the future, the depot will be in charge of the upkeep of 12 brand new Class 720 EMUs, built by Bombardier as part of their Aventra fleet. Remember, this section of our line was built by the LTSR's predecessor, jointly owned by the Eastern Counties and London and Blackwall Railways back in 1858, from Gas Factory Junction to Barking. The district was extended along here in 1902 to Upminster from Whitechapel. But following the electrification in 1905, the service was cut back to East Ham, though on a second pair of tracks laid for the purpose. Upton Park, once the home of West Ham United Football Club, but since 2016, the club has moved to the Olympic Stadium in Stratford. The famous square mile of the City of London appears in the background. During the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games, a footbridge was constructed to connect the station to the Greenway foot and cycle path, that in turn connected directly to the Olympic Park. Crossed the Jubilee Line and DLR Stratford International branch. The latter was built on the tracks of the former North London line to North Woolwich, which closed in 2006. A connection was made with that line here at Abbey Mills Upper Junction until 1958. The line had originally been built by the Eastern Counties and Thames Junction Railway, linking Stratford with Canning Town in 1846. However, platforms on the former North London line didn't come into commission until 1979. across the DLR Stratford to Poplar branch. Just beyond is the former Campbell Road Junction, constructed by the Whitechapel and Bow Railway, a joint undertaking between the District and LTS in 1902. The District and Hammersmith and City lines now diverge here and descend into tunnel towards Bow Road. Gas Factory Junction, and we join the formation built by the London and Blackwall from here to Fenchurch Street. As we approach Limehouse again, and the original formation of the L&B, another lesser-known railway branched off here to our left, forming a triangle. The Limehouse curve opened in 1849 and closed in 1963, and today the only remnant of this route is the bridge over the commercial road. We now take the original course of the L&B into Fenchurch Street that opened along here from Poplar to Minories in 1840. The Docklands Light Railway actually runs on the old formation of the L&B since its opening from Tower Gateway to Canary Wharf in 1987. Electrified on the 750-volt DC system, the trains are operated automatically, so there is minimal staffing on board these trains. The original Shadwell station of 1840 closed in 1941. It was reopened 46 years later on the DLR. The two tracks now become four on the approach to the terminus. Here was where the shortest-lived station on our journey was located. Cannon Street Road Station opened in 1842 and closed in 1848. The abandoned viaduct seen just beyond the former closed station was where the LTSR's Commercial Road Goods Depot was located, lasting for 81 years from 1886. We get the route indicator for platform 3. This was where Leman Street Station stood from 1877 until 1941. More goods lines diverged from our line just before Fenchurch Street. The London and North Western Railway had a goods line to the Hayden Square Depot from 1853 to 1962, and the Great Eastern's East Smithfield's Goods Yard, also serving the docks at St Catherine from 1864 to 1966. London's mainline termini, Fenchurch Street is by far the smallest, with just 4 platforms, used exclusively by trains off the former London Tilbury and Southend. Before the opening of Broad Street Station in 1865, Fenchurch Street was the terminus of the North London Railway and a handful of services of the Great Eastern. And so our trip over the former London, Tilbury and Southend Railway has come to an end. Passengers leaving the station walk out towards the Tower Hamlets area, with the station facade designed by George Berkeley behind them.